So it should be pretty good. Be an interesting show today.
Right.
The training tips with DC and Dramisi, what that is
you like that, don't you?
I do. Yeah, that was good. That was a
The
surprise
DC and
today.
Dramisi.
So, Bill and I had filmed a series of just short. We were trying to keep them in that 3 to 5 minute range of just tips on different things, on concealed carry, on different things like that. And it looks like Rich published the first one, threw it on our Gun Owners Radio YouTube channel.
Yeah. Which everybody should sign up to and join and like and share.
Yeah, all that stuff young people do, right?
Yeah, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm just winging it here.
So,
by the way, I thought about you last night. I watched the Josie Wales.
The Outlaw Josie Wales, classic.
Gosh, that was good, man. I've never seen anybody shoot so much and hit the target so well with such antiquated equipment.
See, that's a great show or great movie because I'm home with the pugs this weekend. So the pugs and I watched Rio Bravo last night.
Oh, did you?
John Wayne and Dean Martin, and we've got El Dorado lined up for tonight.
Well, do you remember the rifle that Josie Wales fired?
Oh, at the Missouri boat ride or something?
Yeah, and it looks like it's got a scope.
Yeah.
Is that a scope?
Yeah, it is. That's what they looked like back then.
And he shot the rope. And
it is a movie, so you can't miss. But
I thought it was a pretty good shot personally. And then all the cavalry went down the river. That was a good movie. I enjoyed it. I even taped that one after watching it. I taped it at the same time.
Yeah, I really like that one. The what else do we have here too? The 2A topics. So like Brendan was saying, that SB 906 did not make it out of committee, which I'm shocked. I have no explanation.
Didn't make
for that.
it out of committee?
Well,
no,
I personally wasn't shocked because there was not a single school district that was a fan of this bill in the first place. So.
Oh no, but they typically don't care about that.
Yeah,
kind of
why
stuff.
do they care? I mean,
they don't care what you think.
Don't the teachers unions don't the teacher unions control them?
Basically, I guess, yeah. But, I mean, at the same token, it's good to know that the district has, I'd like to believe the district has 2A advocates backs. But
does that tell me that there might be a light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, that's what not to spoil the 5 o'clock segment, but yeah, that's one of the optimistic interpretations of this. Not to get too carried away.
Well, no, because I mean, we
could be lots of reasons why this didn't work.
Well, and there's lots of reasons why California will still continually put up roadblocks and find every way possible to either take our guns away or get into our homes. But I mean, for this to fail, I take that as a positive.
Well, that's what I was surprised at because I mean, it's generally any anti-Second Amendment bill just sails right there. I mean, there's nothing to stop it.
Yeah.
And I was really surprised that it just did not have support. We'll talk about it at 5 though, about what was there.
So let me ask you this: what did you think of the way the left has portrayed this DeSantis law in Florida?
Yeah,
I know it's not gun related, but they took the title of it and totally made it their own.
Which is what they do.
The Say No Gay bill. I mean, what? And the public is believing this. I mean, they did a guy on the street and interviewed him, and they all said, well, you shouldn't be saying that. You shouldn't have a bill titled that. Well, it never was titled that.
No, and you can see, and that's the same thing that happens with the Second Amendment stuff. You allow these people to control the narrative, to make up these terms, because they do the same thing with us. And they just throw it out there, and the media runs with it and repeats it. And most people, get their information in little bits and pieces, and they don't take the time to research anything, which I thought, I've always thought that was ironic because, 20 years ago, if you wanted to research something, that was a trip to the library and trying to dig stuff up.
Yeah.
And now it's so easy. You could sit there and
go to Twitter.
You could be on the internet. I mean, you got to pay attention to where you're getting information from, but you can research things, in minutes and find out, whether or not that's right. Because when you hear something, and that's what people don't seem to do nowadays. If you hear something that sounds odd, it's like, okay, that doesn't sound exactly right. Let me look. And you could look pretty easily and figure that out, but people don't do it. It's just the weirdest thing.
Let me look part of it.
Yeah, and I don't understand. I don't know if that's a generational. Brendan, is that a generational thing or?
I don't want to represent my generation. Sorry.
Why not? You're not a good representation?
Oh, we got the older people covered here.
No, I don't think so. I really view myself as an independent person, and I feel like most of my generation
Is not.
that stereotypical kind of.
Do you tend to look things up if you hear something in the media that doesn't sound or it sounds weird to you? Do you tend to look it up and try to verify it?
Absolutely, I do all the time.
Yeah, to me that seems like common sense.
Do you think some of it might have to happen that you do radio? I mean,
especially this radio station here, it helps a lot too.
Yeah, it sure does. It's job security. Ghost guns is a relatively new term used by the gun control industry to make guns seem more dangerous and sinister than they really are. We're going to talk about that next with Rob Pincus. But first, if you have legal matters that involve firearms, then you need to call our California firearms lawyer, John Dillon. If you have questions about red flag laws, gun registration, gun transportation, or maybe you just need to know that your guns are California compliant. Call our trusted firearms attorney, John Dillon. John Dillon specializes in California gun laws. Call 760-642-7150 or visit our website, DillonLawGP.com. So I guess the only reason I brought up the Josie Wells, I wanted to see if it was going to take us off air. Because we did Red Dawn, we got whacked.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess we'll see. It might be early.
So I was just checking. All right. So do we have Rob on the line? Hey, Rob, how's it going, buddy?
Great. How you guys doing?
Well, we're just living the dream in this lovely free state of California.
Doing great. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Has it changed since I was there last time?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to be positive. You know how that goes.
I do. I appreciate you guys having me back on. I'll be back in California this summer teaching as usual on the tour. And, it's always important to spend some time where it isn't as free, I think, to make sure we're paying attention to what the fight is. And I appreciate all the work you guys do locally and obviously nationally to educate people about what those problems really are and why we have to fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it helps. Gives you a little perspective there. Lets you appreciate things a little bit. But,
yeah, and one of the things that I appreciate, when I am in California, one of the things I appreciate is how hard so many people do fight to exercise their rights, even with, restricted, like I heard, you gave a plug for someone that helps people figure out if their guns are compliant.
Mm-hmm.
Quite frankly, someone that's exercising their Second Amendment rights in New York, New Jersey, California, Massachusetts, in a way, you guys earn those rights more every day than the average guy in Arizona or California, Texas, pick your state.
Yeah, without a doubt.
All right, so good. Hey, Rob, I heard you had a birthday yesterday. Is that right?
I did.
You're like 37 now.
I heard he was 22.
Yeah, something like that.
I finally turned 50. I feel like, some of these old timers that have been teaching since the Vietnam era won't call me kid anymore maybe now. I don't know.
I love that. I finally turned 50. When's the last time you heard a 50-year-old say, I finally... What, were you looking forward to it?
Well, you got to remember, I started teaching full-time. I mean, I was running classes. I took over the Valhalla Training. We launched, really, the Valhalla Training Center, took over the club that preceded it in my late 20s. So I showed up, running curricula and developing programs and teaching a lot of people who had a lot more, experience as armed professionals than I had very early on because of our training methodologies and our approach to training. Obviously there were people that found that valuable, but a lot of times the guys would show up like, who is this kid? Obviously in the industry, it's the same kind of thing. Like, who's this guy that didn't spend 20 years in law enforcement before he dared to hang up a shingle and say he was an instructor? So, I was kind of glad when I went gray and, whatever else. I was doing everything I could not to look 13. So it's not something I've dreaded. Quite honestly, it gets me closer to the day that I do pass the torch to lots of those instructors out there who are prepared to probably go much further than I have.
Wow, that's amazing. So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, you guys started talking about ghost guns, and we just ran the second annual gun makers match, the National Gun Makers Match down in Florida last weekend. I'd love to tell you about that.
Yeah, what's that all about?
So we started this last year. The first gun makers match was held in June in St. Augustine, Florida, and it was the first gathering of gun builders, private gun makers, people from the 3D printing side, people from the kit building side, and then obviously there's a few people out there who are using more what I would say are more in line with traditional manufacturing or commercial manufacturing techniques, where they're actually milling guns and milling their own receivers. It's something that is legal to do one way or another in, I think, currently 44 states. There are regulations on doing it in about 15 states. So California, for example, is one of the places where it's pretty heavily regulated, but it is legal to do. Massachusetts is another state where it's pretty regulated, but it's legal to do. And we actually ran a regional gun makers match last year, late in December, up in Massachusetts at Cape Gun Works. But the second annual match, again, brought people from the West Coast, the Midwest, the Northeast, down to Florida. People from all over the country competed in 3 different divisions inside of 2 categories. So one category is 3D printed based firearms, and the other is kit built firearms. And we put the milled guns, the few guys that show up with them, in with the 3D printed guns, because they are truly starting from raw materials like the 3D printers do. And they compete in handgun, PCC or braced pistol, and rifle categories. And it's sort of like an action shooting match. If you think of an IDPA or USPSA stage, they compete on multiple stages. We score it just like an IDPA match would be scored, something along those lines. Best 2 hits count, and you're penalized for poor hits. Your score is your time plus penalties, and then we award some plaques and we give away some great prizes, and everybody, just about everybody, I think, has a great time, and we hope that everybody gets what they expect out of the match. And this year it was a big success. The event is actually sanctioned by Guns for Everyone National, the 501c3 arm of Guns for Everyone, based here in Colorado, where I am right now at my Western headquarters. And it's also co-sponsored or really helped to organize the event is a group called Are We Cool Yet? The Aussie group, AWCY, and they are a community that develops 3D printed guns, designs, and supports people who are getting into the hobby, and even new designers who are developing truly unique firearms based on 3D printed technology.
Say, Rob, just for the listeners here, what's the difference between the kit guns and a 3D printed gun? And like, if I had 2 guns laying side by side here, one from a kit, one from a 3D print, could you tell the difference, or could you see a difference in them?
You probably could tell the difference with, I would say, 99% of the printed guns. The 99% of the printed guns, the quality of the print, that would have what we call layer lines. It would be pretty obvious that it wasn't a commercially made frame, that it would have more of a do-it-yourself kind of look in most cases. Now, I will tell you, some of the guys are doing some amazing things with some very high-tech filaments, the raw material that you use in 3D printer. They use higher temperatures. They use really incredibly precise machines in some cases to make some things that you really can't, especially at a glance or when you first pick it up, you can't tell the difference between some of these guns and whether it's a kit build or a commercially made firearm. Now, the kit built guns, we're talking about companies like Polymer 80 or SS80 that's based right there in California. Those kits really are going through exactly the same injection molding process, using very similar polymers or plastics to what Glock or Smith & Wesson or SIG use in their polymer framed guns. So those will look and feel much more like a commercially made firearm, especially if you really don't know what you're looking at when it comes to the 3D printed guns.
And how are the 3D printed guns? How are they in terms of reliability and wear?
Yeah,
it's a little bit. It's completely safe if you do it. Obviously, if you do it properly, like anything else, if you do it improperly, it could be a little less safe. You have to remember, almost all of the guns that people are quote unquote 3D printing, what we are 3D printing is the frame of the gun. So, in that answering the last question, I was really picturing, a typical Glock style handgun, either made with a kit or made with a 3D printer. Now, if you talk about 3D printing some of the very unique guns, the guns that can only be 3D printed because there are no kits, they obviously don't look like anything else, on the market or in the community. So those stand out. And then again, if the print quality is high enough, it'll look commercially manufactured. If the print quality is typical, it'll look a little more home-built, do-it-yourself. In terms of reliability, that home-built, do-it-yourselfness can be a factor in the kits as well as the 3D printing. So if your pinholes aren't straight, if your rails aren't smooth, it's just like when I don't know if you were ever involved in, custom building your own 1911s, but back in the 90s when I was doing that, if you didn't file everything right, if it wasn't polished properly, that gun wasn't going to operate smoothly and reliably either. So all of those pitfalls are there. With the kits, it is a little bit more be patient and follow the instructions, and it'll work. With the 3D printing, if you're using a design that's put out there by one of the well-known designers or one of the groups like Aussie, if you're getting your designs from someplace like DefCAD, it's probably a well-vetted design. If you don't mess with it, you'll be able to print it out, install the parts, and be shooting a gun. But these guns, most of the guns that people are using uppers, whether it's slides and barrels or AR-15 type uppers that are commercially made. So they're buying the commercially made parts that are not serialized, that aren't controlled items, and they're making their own frames. So they end up with an unserialized, privately made firearm, whether it's a rifle, pistol, a braced pistol, but they're using a lot of commercial parts. On the other hand, there are people who are doing truly home-built guns. There are designs out there that are really impressive. I just recently put up a video of me shooting a Cobra 9, which was developed by a guy named Darren. He goes by Durwood in the printing community. It's his kind of code name. And it's an amazing design that is truly unique, and it has a recoil dampening system that is pretty innovative, and it shoots incredibly smoothly. Think MP5 style gun.
So the barrel itself is still steel? It's not?
Yeah, all the barrels, you can technically 3D print a complete gun, but as you can imagine, unless it has an incredibly thick barrel, it's not actually survive the first couple of shots. So you could do something with like a rimfire 22 short, maybe a 20 long rifle. But for the 99.9% of the guns out there, 99.999% of the guns out there have either traditional barrels or barrels that are made through a process called electrochemical machining, where you actually combine some 3D printing techniques and an electrochemical process with a salt bath, and you can imagine some electricity and some twisted copper wires to give you rifling inside of high-grade steel. So you can make your own barrels and truly have a gun that has no commercial parts whatsoever.
Well, the reason I bring it up, unfortunately, is the left listens to our show all the time. And if you could make a usable, all plastic or all, which you could get through an airport security and all that, what'll break loose. So I wanted to make sure that that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's not what we're talking about. You got to remember, that fear-mongering is going to be there, that misunderstanding.
Well, I know, but if I get out there and say it, then they can't come back at us and say, well, you said that you're making guns, and no, get a life.
Yeah, and there is the Undetectable Firearms Act is still in effect, that law that went into effect in the late 80s that said no firearm can be undetectable.
Right.
That's still a thing. And just to put everybody at ease, while I said, you could make a firearm theoretically that might last a shot or two without using traditional parts, you have to remember the bullets, if they're going to be dangerous to people, are still going to be made of metal, and they're still going to be findable on those scanners, magnetometers, or the much more advanced scanners that TSA is using.
All right. Rob, can you hang with us for another segment?
Absolutely.
You're the best. Hey, you want to get a pilot's license? Go ahead. It's on your bucket list. Just look. But if you're going to do it, make that dream come true at San Diego Flight Training International. Hey, we're so excited to welcome San Diego Flight Training International as a new sponsor. You can learn to fly, start the adventure of a lifetime in the heart of San Diego, right in Montgomery Field. Getting started is super easy. Give them a call, 858-569-1822. You can learn to fly with SDFTI. Call them today, 858-569-1822. 1822. Get trained by the professionals. All right, we got Rob Pincus on the line. We've just been sort of chatting about the infamous ghost guns. But you know what? I when I was listening to you talk about that event in Florida, it kind of reminded me of the custom hot rod community. How people just will take a four-wheel vehicle and turn it into things that would blow you away. And it sounds to me like you must have come out with some pretty interesting guns at that event.
Oh, yeah. People can go to gunmakersmatch.com and see some of the pictures and see some of the links to some of the media coverage that we've gotten in the past. The media coverage from the second event is starting to come out. We had one video with a bunch of great interviews with some of the competitors, some of the organizers, and lots of good video of the shooting and the guns themselves come out on an international feed. Actually, we had crew there from a German-based news source that gave us a really nice, no editorial, no commentary about crazy Americans with evil guns or any of that, just a very fair showing of what we were doing and mostly let us talk about it. We've got a piece coming out, a little mini documentary from Newsy, and last year Vice News did a great documentary. People can find it if they search Gunmakers Match, 3D printed Gunmakers Match through Vice News. It's about a 30-minute piece, and we actually had a journalist make his own gun. He was from California. He made his own gun, competed in the match, and then he had to destroy the gun at the end of the show because he didn't want to take it back to California, and he obviously couldn't legally take it back to California because he didn't get the serial number first. This year, we had a journalist make her own gun. She had never shot a handgun before. She made a gun, she shot it, and she actually took possession of it and took it home with her. She is now a new gun owner because of the Gunmakers Match. And that's one of the things we're trying to get people to do. Obviously, for some people, they just love crafts. They love working. They're machinists.
Yeah.
They're creators. They work with their hands, woodworking, as you mentioned, car customization, whatever it might be. Plenty of people who are just technically good at 3D printing have gotten into guns because it's such a technical challenge. And now the Gunmakers Match gives them a place to show off their work.
Well, and Rob, people have been making guns since
the beginning.
Guns. So what's the argument against being allowed to build your own gun? I mean, why would you argue against that, or why would people argue against that?
Yeah, obviously, I'm not arguing against that. I think it comes down to right now in the gun control community. If we look at President Biden, if we look at the kind of the regular actors in the gun control world, they have lost and/or been pushed back on so many fronts. Even the gun control community, starting to have people like the most recent past president of the Brady campaign organization who has come right out and said, magazine bans aren't the way to go. Assault weapons ban, it doesn't even mean anything. It's not the way to go. It's not where anybody should be putting their energy because it doesn't really create anything worth infringing on people's rights. So one of the pieces of low-hanging fruit I think that the gun control community perceives right now is to cast a very negative light on the idea of private gun making somehow only being about keeping the government out of guns, which quite frankly they shouldn't be. We know that, but that can be turned into a nefarious concept by the gun control community. And this idea that the only reason you would make a gun that doesn't have a serial number is for criminal intent, because let's face it, most people get their information about guns from movies and TV, and on TV, tracing a gun is this magic way to solve all crimes. And I can assure you, based on my own personal law enforcement experience and, obviously talking to a lot of other law enforcement professionals over the years, tracing a gun is not something that solves very many crimes in the way it does on TV. So it can be cast as a negative thing very easily. And again, that's one of the missions of the Gunmakers Match, is to show who's really involved in this. It's some of the most responsible, most educated gun owners who are incredibly passionate about safety. Even when it comes down to our inspection table, we inspect all of the privately made guns that come into the Gunmakers Match. They have to be inspected before they can be used in competition because we want to make sure they're safe, and we want to make sure people are building them responsibly. And the kind of guys that are into gun making, overwhelmingly, again, they are the most conscientious and responsible gun owners.
Well, so and Rob, just based on the people that you interact with and what you've heard, have you heard a lot about the criminal use of homemade guns or anything nowadays?
Well, I hear a lot. I get asked a lot of questions by journalists. They'll say things like, well, the seizure of ghost guns is up 400% in some jurisdiction or another. And I always, challenge them to push back on wherever they're getting these statistics from, because we know that the term ghost gun, if all it means is an untraceable gun, well, that could be a lot of things. It could be a gun manufactured before 1968 and sold legally that wasn't required to have a logged serial number with the federal government. It could mean a privately made gun. It could mean a gun that a criminal took the serial number off of because they had criminal intent and did something wrong with it. And that's been going on. I remind me, my dad was a narcotics detective in the 70s, right? I have pictures of him, from newspaper clippings, with stacks of cash, drugs, and guns that had the serial numbers filed off. I mean, this is the idea that criminals take serial numbers off of guns is nothing new. Those are ghost guns in the vernacular that most law enforcement would use that term. And also remember that in most states, private sales are legal. So in most states, the second time a gun gets sold from one gun owner to another responsible gun owner, it is now technically untraceable. I always advise people, if you privately sell a gun, you should get a bill of sale and you should see the person's ID, preferably a concealed carry permit or something like that, so you're selling it to a responsible gun owner. But there's no legal obligation to do that, nor should there be. So it's very possible that a gun can be traced in many states from the manufacturer to the wholesaler to the retailer to the first customer, and the first customer can tell the cops when they knock on the door, oh, I sold that to somebody 8 years ago, and I don't have the paperwork, or I don't remember the paperwork, or, unless you have a warrant, I'm not going to tell you who I sold it to. And that's completely legal, and that makes that gun a ghost gun too. So whenever I hear these statistics, I always have to challenge the journalists and anybody else who's concerned about them. Are the guns you're hearing about actually privately made guns? And are they being used in violent crimes, or are these just incidental confiscations because of possession, during a DUI arrest? And I'm not saying DUI is okay. I'm just saying confiscating a gun during a DUI arrest is not the same as someone going into a movie theater and shooting people with a gun. And we're just not seeing a lot of violent crime with privately made guns. In fact, for one of the chiefs of police here in Denver, where I'm sitting right now at my Western HQ, I can no longer possess or manufacture unserialized guns as of the first week in January. It's a new law. It's a law that I'm fighting, and some other people or some other big organizations are looking at backing some lawsuits against the city. But one of the chiefs of police and someone from the crime lab did one of the city council meetings when they were discussing this potential restriction, and they told them, they said, we as the police department have seen no significant number of these unserialized guns and none involved in any violent crimes here in the city or county of Denver. And yet the city council still passed the restriction.
Right. So let me ask you this. I mean, just so we can make this a little bit more understandable to say to the folks listening to the show that are not into guns. And I don't know if you asked this question at your conference. How long does it take to make this gun, a ghost gun, shall we call it, from A to Z? A week, 2 weeks, a month? I mean, you see where I'm going with this?
I do. And so let me put it to you this way, and I'm going to tell you why I think this is an important thing to talk about. I don't think it's important from the aspect that most people ask, as if somehow it's not as bad if it takes a long time. I think that's how most people ask. So if you talk about 3D printing a gun, it could take you literally 40 to 50 hours to print the parts of the gun that you then have to file and clean up and sand and fix, that you then have to assemble the parts. Some of these guns that are truly do-it-yourself require welding skills in addition to 3D printing skills. You've got to file and polish the metal pieces that you've created. You've got to assemble all the parts, and it literally can take a couple weeks of work just to get to where you're testing the gun at the range, and then you might have to fiddle with it a little bit to make it reliable. That's at the extreme end. These kit-built guns, the Glock-style pistol kits, if you laid all the parts out, of course, that means you had to go to the store or mail order all the parts, all these other things that are legal to own without having to go through a background check and all that stuff. If you had all the parts and all the tools laid out on a table and you hit a stopwatch, I absolutely 100% guarantee that I could get a working gun going within an hour. I'm sure there are people out there that could probably reliably, they'll tell you they bet $100 they could do it in 30 or 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. Now, that being said, and this is why I think this is important to talk about, I don't hide that. When Biden or Schumer or somebody says you can get these parts off the internet and build a gun in 30 minutes, I ask you, gun control advocate, what's the appropriate amount of time? Like, what are you going to be satisfied with? Are you going to tell me that if it took 3 hours, you wouldn't care? If it took 3 weeks, you wouldn't care? If it took 3 months, you wouldn't care? I don't think that's the case. So I think it's a disingenuous attack. It's not as if, well, if it took an hour, it'd be okay. But the fact that it takes 30 minutes, that's really a problem. That's not freedom. It shouldn't matter how long it takes. Some guys, that build kit airplanes or as you mentioned, hot rods, they have those things in their garage for years.
Sure.
They hit the road with them or they hit the runway with them. Other people might do it in a month. I think for the handgun or the rifle, we got to remember, you can go buy one with an instant background check in almost every state in this country. So the idea that you can walk into a store with the same amount of money you're going to spend and walk out the door with the gun has to be remembered and has to be talked about. The fact is we're advocating for shall not be infringed.
Right.
How long it takes to build the gun really shouldn't need to be part of the discussion.
And if you're a crook, you can get it in 15 minutes if you know where to go.
Well, that's just it. When you look at what goes into building these guns, every journalist who's gone hands-on to build a gun, every journalist has come to the same conclusion. wow, this is a lot of work. I can't imagine the criminal wanting to go through this when they could just go buy a gun for cash.
So that's why that argument, doesn't hold water. When you hear these people talk about, up 400%, it sounds like there's just thousands of criminals making guns.
Well, see, and that's why I'm always skeptical when I hear those kinds
Right.
of. Well, because one, up 400% could mean we got 1 last year and we got 4 this year.
Yeah.
Right.
But for that same
That's a
reason,
good
though,
point.
I mean, criminals. Why would you go through all that when it's much, much easier just to go buy a stolen gun?
I know but it doesn't make any difference because they're doing everything humanly possible to get the guns taken away. I don't know if you heard the law that just got failed in the schools, where the schools wanted the kids to rat on their parents about gun ownership.
Oh, I did, and I'm glad that one went away.
Yeah.
That was incredibly ridiculous.
Yeah, well, maybe that's a bright light, or maybe a little light in California, because that was a shocker. Rob, this has been a blast. Thank you very much for chatting with Joe and I, and we always look forward to talking to you down the road.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And we need to spend some range time together when I'm out in California next time.
Let's do
Looking forward to it.
All right, buddy. Hey, how do people follow you and stay on top of what you're doing?
They can follow me at Pincus Rob, Pincus Rob, at Twitter or Instagram, and they can just use my name on the social medias. Any of them, they'll find me, and gunmakersmatch.com for more information on that event.
I'm definitely going to go check that one out. I can't wait to see what that's all about. Thanks, buddy. You have a good next week.
It's mine? Okay. So how do we protect and defend the Second Amendment? A big thing that we do is to interview and vet political candidates. So we make it easy for gun owners to vote for people that will fight for the Second Amendment. We're going to keep on doing that with an interview with Cordie Williams coming up next.
But first, does it take too much time to clean your gun to end up smelling like a gas station? Well, clean, lube, and protect your gun faster with Seal One. Seal One CLP Plus is natural, non-toxic, and environmentally friendly. Clean your guns faster and smell good. One and done with Seal One. Ask for it by name at your local gun shop. If they don't have it, tell them to get you some. Or you can just go to their website at seal1.com. That's seal1.com. All right, Joe, who we got up next?
We have Dr. Cordie Williams, who is running for U.S. Senate, going for the seat that Kamala vacated. And the interim senator there is Alex Padilla, I think. So, Dr. Williams, are you on?
Yes, I am. How are you, gentlemen?
Very
Great.
good, very
Welcome
good.
to the show. Hey, you want to tell
Happy Sunday.
Thank you.
so you want to tell the folks a little bit about yourself. So who are you and what's going on?
Yeah. So I'm a U.S. Marine, father of 2 young boys under the age of 5. I'm a Jesus guy. I'm a Trump guy. Lifetime NRA member. And, one of those guys that grew up right outside of Seattle. My dad always took me hunting and fishing, and we went deer hunting. I probably was firing a BB gun at 5. I think I was shooting a 22 at 7, and by the age of 8 or 9, I was firing a 308 and a 30-06, and been around firearms pretty much my whole life. I got to really shoot some really cool ones in 1998 when I went into the U.S. Marine Corps.
Cool.
So great. So that
Elevator speech.
go ahead. So
Yeah,
Dr.
no, I was just going to say that's kind of the elevator speech.
Yeah, that's a good one. Nothing wrong with that at all. 308. I had a British 303, if you want to talk about a fun gun.
Ah.
Yeah. I locked my keys in a car, and I used that to get in. So you can imagine what the window and the door on the other side look like afterwards.
Oh my goodness, that sounds like something we do in Alabama.
Yeah, well,
I was born there, so.
So how did you end up here in San Diego?
Yeah, well, my wife. So I'm a chiropractor. So my wife and I both have doctorates in chiropractic, and she was very much of the non-gun, non-country music, liberal side of the camp when I met her back in 2010. And I always like to say I converted her. She loves George Strait now. She probably fires a Glock better than I do. I'm ashamed to admit. And she probably loves Donald Trump more than I do too. So we really converted her. And she's a Jesus follower now. But, you know, we met in school in 2010. Just happened to be, you know, I was coming up from Slab Lab, and she was sitting out by herself. Slab Lab's what we call when you look at dead people, and you got to look at skin, tissue, and nerves and all that. That's what doctors do when they're learning. And she was outside and eating by herself, and you know, fate would have it, and probably a lot of God would have it, that she was dumb enough to go out with me, and the rest is history. The rest is history.
So I've got to ask you a question. What college did you go to for chiropractic?
Yeah, Life University. It's right outside of Atlanta in a little town called Marietta.
Have you ever heard of Pearson College? You ever heard of Pearson?
I've heard of it, and it's been a while. So I couldn't tell you what state it's in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have heard of it for sure.
The only reason I say that is I found a chiropractor from there, and everybody I talk to that knows anything about it says that's the college. And I'll tell you, the guy did wonders for me. Then he passed away. But I digress. So what made you jump into this race to fill the smallest shoes in the state?
Yeah, well, you know what? You know, a lot of people ask me that, and you know, at 42, I've been in practice probably 8 or 9 years. And we moved out here in 2014, and you know, I had no political aspirations. You know, I thought my service was done from a U.S. constitutional standpoint, because I'd served my 4 years in the Marine Corps and was trucking along with my family, and everything was going great. And then the COVID situation started, or the Fauci virus, and when it started, we just kind of felt that, like a lot of people, like we were going to lose our business. You know, we chose not to mask because we felt that was our constitutional right in our practice. We chose not to follow, you know, a lot of these rules that we just have never really seen the science on. And we started protesting early on. So it was probably March. Actually, probably the second week of April, we went to a rally in San Diego, found ourselves at another one in Pacific Beach, and then fate would find it 3 months into the lockdown. I got a plane ticket to Sacramento. This was really, gentlemen, before rallies were rallies. Mussolini pulled the permits on a real peaceful protest, not the ones where they're burning, looting, and committing murders and stuff, but a real one. And he pulled the permits on it the night before. And this rally that at 8 a.m. had maybe 100 people there, within 2 hours had 3,000. And the CHP there, on Newsom's orders, formed a baton line. They started throwing women to the ground, handcuffing people, all sorts of stuff. And before you know it, there's 300 to 500 riot gear police. And to make a long story short, this went on for a couple hours. They pushed us back 500 yards. There were 64 arrests that day. And I got on a megaphone and turned my hat backwards and just talked to them about the oath they took. And it got picked up by the Hodge twins, Scoop, and David Harris Jr. And 21 million views later, we launched a nonprofit called 1776 Forever Free. And we've done over 120 rallies statewide and nationally with people like Mike Lindell, General Flynn, Brandon Strzok, Roger Stone, all sorts of folks. And we've just been sharing the message of the Constitution and encouraging people to run for office. So after 2 years and three weekends every month for 2 years being away from my family, everybody started asking me, when are you going to run? And, you know, here we are.
Well, it's great. I'm glad to hear you've done all that too, Dr. Williams, because it was just, you know, especially with what's happened over the last couple of years. I know my view of the medical profession has changed drastically over the last 2 years. And it's really, I think it's really refreshing to hear that you guys actually stood up in terms of the masks and all that other stuff, because it's tough to do for people in your field, and you really have to, believe in what you're doing and really stand up for that. So I applaud you for that kind of stuff. And I was looking at your website, and just great things in there. You've got a bunch of issues listed, and your responses or your opinion on those issues. And I could have written them all myself. I was right in line with all the stuff I was reading up there. The one thing I noticed, though, that wasn't there was I did not see a Second Amendment thing on there and your feelings on the Second Amendment. And just after listening to you here, obviously you've got a long history with firearms, but can you talk about your opinion on the Second Amendment and the state of things nowadays?
Yeah. Well, and that'll be added today. I don't know why that's not there, and I apologize for that, because after 5 months of this campaign, it should be there. And just so your viewers know, I'm the only candidate in the field that is endorsed by 3-star General Leroy Sisco, that's best friends with George Strait and sits on the board of the National Rifle Association. So it is something I take very seriously. So, I'll apologize, to you guys for it not being there. But pardon me, what was your question one more time?
Oh, just your
what's your opinion on gun ownership?
Yeah, just on the Second Amendment and the condition of things nowadays and where you see it going forward.
Yeah, it's appalling. I mean, honestly, they're trying to strip our guns away. I mean, it's obvious whether you look at the assault weapons ban, whether you look at the way the media frames their narrative around that ban, and what the rhetoric even since the 1970s. You can go back to the different way that they have, it's been an all-out, to use their term, assault on anyone carrying a firearm. I mean, the fact that we even need a permit to carry a weapon anywhere in this country, any state, it's a travesty, because the Second Amendment is very clear that we should be able to have that firearm on our person at all times, anytime we want, anywhere we want. And it's a travesty that there's only 25 states, after the NRA's fought for that for 3 decades, that's actually happening. And it's like we're asking, somebody permission to wipe our butt after we take a crap.
Mm-hmm.
It's a joke.
That's a good analogy. I like that one. That's perfect. Well, and then, so I'm sure you were pretty happy about that one case or that one law they were trying to pass where your kids would rat on you to their teachers.
So
yeah, well, this is the typical left doing what they do. I mean, they did the same thing with COVID, right?
Right.
You create a Karen and Kevin. You put everybody in fear, and then you actually it's a genius marketing plan, because now you have disciples of your falsehood, and you have drones and people that are zombies.
Right. How do people follow you around and help you out?
You can go to Cordie4Senate, CORDIE, 4Senate.com, and donate. That's Cordie4Senate.com. And we need all the help we can get, but we are winning in this race, and we're excited to stand up for gun owners everywhere and people that want freedom in America.
A lot of companies are frustrated with their website. It looks old, it's hard to update, and it's not generating any leads. Well, Sage Tree gets it. Since 2005, Sage Tree has been helping companies with websites that look great, work great, and get leads. Stop being embarrassed by your website and get one that you would be proud of. Contact Sage Tree today to get a website that makes the phones ring. Getting started is easy. Go to sagetree.com and schedule a call. Go to sagetree.com and press the schedule a call button today. All right, Joe, get a grip.
All right, so we'll talk about that. I wanted to let the listeners know, though, if they're wondering why I'm laughing every time I'm saying this, the answer, because normally that's a Michael thing, and I don't have the Michael voice.
Well, and you're
Michael.
Also filling some very small shoes.
That's right. I'm also not 8, so I don't sound like Action Jackson either. So I'm winging it here, and it's funny because I know Dave hates it.
No, I love it. No, it's great. Action Jackson's trying to fill Michael's shoes, and you're trying to fill Action Jackson's shoes, and I'm just glad it's out there.
I think Action Jackson does a better job than I'm doing. But
He
that's
does.
okay.
He does
I don't
a
mind
really
doing
good
this.
job. So what's your get a grip this week?
So this week, we'll talk about the ray of hope for California. It was just last week, I think, actually. We talked about this, the Senate bill, SB 906. And this was a bill that was being proposed up in Sacramento by a Senator Portantino, I guess, who's an enthusiastic anti-gun guy. But the bill was going to require parents to disclose their gun ownership. Do they own guns? How do they store guns? Where do they store guns? to their children's schools.
Yeah, but wasn't it the kids supposed to be going to the parents and getting this information and turning it?
No. Actually, it was worse than that because the bill was going to require the schools to add a block on the enrollment form. So as a parent, you would have to declare this when you were enrolling your kids into the school, or lie about it, or do what I was thinking most people would have done, is pull their kids out of the school
But
system.
just think, what would have happened if you put down there, how many guns do you own? 4,682. I owe 50 million rounds of ammo. I mean,
Well, yeah.
you think they'd come after you?
Well, the whole thing is just ludicrous.
Well,
but again,
no, I get
it's
it.
just one more thing that, we let people get away with, or we let that side get away with. And it was interesting because, when I wrote about it last week, I was thinking, okay, well, here's another bad thing that's going to sail right through the Senate.
That's what I thought too, yeah.
And get signed into law. And then I see on Wednesday, it had to go through committee, and it got 2 votes out of 7 in the committee to go forward. So it died in committee. And that was even after Portantino, I guess, promised to drastically alter the bill and change it if it got through committee. And they still wouldn't go for it. And
where's the guarantee there that he would change it?
well, it was interesting. I guess, he's not guaranteeing it to us; he's guaranteeing it to his colleagues. I guess.
I don't think but he has
maybe
no
it meant something.
guarantee.
But it's interesting because I was thinking, okay, well, why? What happened there? Because typically anything that's anti-Second Amendment or anti-liberty or anti-rights out here just sails through. It seems like.
Mm-hmm.
And, that might be an overstatement, but I think it's pretty close.
I think you're right on the money, personally.
But there were a number of people, a number of organizations that were fighting this. Ironically, it was the ACLU and the NRA were both in opposition to this thing, which is interesting to see the two of them on the same side. As well as they say there were several rank and file law enforcement organizations that were also against it.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of the local schools were against it as well. I was actually going to have Andrew Hayes come on here and talk about it. Andrew Hayes is a board member in the Lakeside Union School District, and he was putting a letter together to write up, to them about this and to urge them not to do it, because it gets into another thing. It gets the schools into enforcement kind of stuff, which they don't need to be in. And it's just, that's another one of the many things that was wrong with it. And it was interesting. I linked to an article in my article where they talk about it. And there was there were several of Portantino's colleagues, Democratic colleagues, that said, this was too much of an infringement on civil liberties, which, was shocking. I didn't, it was just weird.
By the way, that's a shocked look on my face, folks.
And there was, there was another Democratic senator, which I think was the head of the committee that had to go through, that was saying, this bill, she thought there's a problem with schools and shootings and things, which again is another issue that I will talk about some other time.
Right.
But she was saying this bill is not the way to address it. Her view was it doesn't address student mental health, which is more along the lines of where the issue is. It's not a gun issue, and she wasn't really saying this, but she said this unintentionally.
Underlying,
it's not a gun issue; it's a mental health issue. That's what these things are.
Right.
But his bill would have done nothing to deal with any of that. But I was thinking, okay, well, why did this happen? Because Portantino used all the, hysterical anti-Second Amendment arguments that they always use for these kinds of things. He talked about how the bill was going to save lives, which, is again, dubious. He also threw out a bunch of really inflated numbers. He mentioned something like there were more than 1,300 school shootings in the country since 1970. 160 of those, he said, were in California. And, that would roughly come out to about 26 school shootings a year, which just, again, this is what we were talking about a little bit earlier. If something doesn't sound right, you might look into it. I mean, I wrote about this back in 2018. And when I was looking at it, if you're going to define something as a school shooting, because that's another thing that side does, is they throw a bunch of other things in there.
Mm-hmm.
But, school shootings, actual school shootings where someone walks into a school and shoots students or adults or something like that. There were 22 of them that fell into that category from 1903 to 2018 in California. 17 of those 22 were since 1990. So, a lot of the stuff, certainly there's problems now, and certainly it's more recent because we were talking about this before. When you and I were kids, I mean, there were kids, when I was in high school, there were kids that brought shotguns to school because it was hunting season.
Well, of course, and they were going right after school.
Yeah, either
or
before school or after. And I've had people tell me that at their schools, people or kids would bring guns and give them to the principal. The principal would hang on to them during the day until they went hunting after school.
Show and tell.
And, there's definitely things are different now, in our society that are causing some of these things. But, the guns aren't it. So, I was thinking about this, and I like to be an optimist about this kind of stuff. And I don't want to read too much into it. But, as the Charger fans used to say, a win is a win. So, I'll take that. But, on the best case, or in the best case side, this could be a tiny crack, I was saying, in the wall of oppression that separates Californians from the rights that all other Americans enjoy. So this could actually be a good sign. Whether something is starting to change, whether politicians out here are finally starting to react maybe to what the public is doing and what they're seeing. Could it be that the politicians in Sacramento are actually starting to acknowledge, what Californians actually want from their government? Or is it just an election year, anomaly? So,
well, do you think, like you said earlier, normally this would fly through, with no problem.
That's what I was thinking.
So do you think maybe because of the massive division between the right and the left in California that everybody is looking so close to these different bills that this had a lot to do with, instead of it just flying through? Because, back in the day, we wouldn't even know this bill was being written.
Well, no, and that assumes that some of the Democrat politicians out here actually care about the people in California
because they
and their rights.
They want to stay in office.
Well, that would be different if that's how they're starting to think. I hope that's what's happening, but time will tell. So John Crump is an AmmoLand author, podcaster, and a Second Amendment activist. Get to know John and what he's been up to next.
But first, do you know Leo Hamel just doesn't sell jewelry? They also buy your jewelry. Leo Hamel will buy your jewelry, diamonds, gold, silver, flatware, coins, Swiss watch for the best possible price and pay you on the spot. They'll even buy them broken. Here's an idea. Why not sell the jewelry or watch that you're not wearing and then buy a gun that you can go shoot? When you sell to Leo Hamel, not only will you get the best deal, you'll also be supporting the Second Amendment Support the companies that support the 2A. Call 619-299-1500, or you can visit their website at leohamel.com to find the jewelry buying location near you. Always get awesome service at Leo's, 619-299-1500. Would you like to introduce Mr. Crump?
I can introduce John. So
I think you could.
John Crump, writer extraordinaire, award-winning author, journalist, Second Amendment activist. Yeah, there you go. How's that for an introduction?
How you doing, John?
Not bad. How you doing? Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah, I thought he would do a really good job, and he did. So, hey, how did you get into 2A activism?
I bought a gun store a while ago. I was always into constitutional stuff, and I bought a gun store around like 2013-ish. And just looking at everything that was going on around 2A and everything else, I've been watching from the sidelines for a little bit. But I started submitting letters to the editor over at AmmoLand, and then after a while, they just asked me, hey, would you like to come write for us? And I said, sure. And that's history. I've been writing for them ever since.
Wait a minute. Who wakes up one morning and says, I think I'm going to go buy a gun store today? Really?
Well...
I mean, unless you're a real enthusiast and you wanted to surround you. I mean, I would go buy a hot rod shop if I had the money. You've decided to buy a gun. I mean, because you were a major enthusiast, or you just wanted to own a bunch of guns, or at least not own them, but have them in your premise? I mean, I don't know.
Well, I was buying a bunch of firearms, and I still do. So it was like a natural step up. My wife says that I like to jump like all the way into the deep end on anything I do.
Yeah.
So,
I think there's a word for that. What is it? OCD? I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
I do the same thing. Trust me, I know the feeling.
John, where are you located?
Yeah, where are you located? We're going to come visit you.
yeah, well, I'm located right outside of D.C. I no longer own the gun store, the gun stores. Well, the profit margin just wasn't there, and, I was better focusing my efforts on other business opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And I started writing and everything else. But, yeah, I'm right outside the D.C. corridor, I guess you could say. I guess I'm in the D.C. corridor, like 30 minutes away from the White House.
Oh, wow.
Are you from that area, John? Did you grow up there?
I grew up here. I was born in Arlington, Virginia, and I've lived here my whole entire life.
Wow. So you've seen a lot of changes in your time.
Oh, massive changes.
It's probably why you don't have a gun store anymore.
Well, hey, I got some.
One of the biggest changes is like 70% of the people that live in my area are from north of Virginia, not northern Virginia, but north of Virginia, like Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts, all those areas. So I've seen a big change.
Wow.
So what's the Second Amendment feeling then in your immediate area, like in your neighborhood?
In my neighborhood, it is kind of funny because I live in like a liberal part of Virginia, northern Virginia, of course. So there is actually a strong Second Amendment vibe. It's just underground. Like, a lot of people don't want to talk about that. Like, the headmaster at my kid's school, like a few years ago, came up to me because my license plate used to say gun ammo. And she was like, I love your license plate. I just can't say it out loud.
Oh,
my
my God.
That sounds like California.
Yeah.
But hey, John, how did you?
Northern Virginia have a lot of similarities.
I bet.
So hey, I got a question for you. How did you end up riding shotgun with Charlie?
He sent me a message one day saying, I'm going to be in the D.C. area. Would you mind if I stop by? And I said, yeah, sure. Come on by.
So did you guys know each other?
And we did.
Did you know him before that?
Yeah, we've talked. We just never was able to hook up at the same time. But yeah, we talked. I mean, I wouldn't say that we were friends, but yeah, he is an acquaintance, and now I would consider him a friend now.
Okay, for clarification, Joe, who is Charlie?
So riding shotgun with Charlie Cook, who will be on the show actually in a couple of weeks. So we're going to have him on here. But he's got a little YouTube thing where he drives people around and interviews them, and it's sort of like the if you've seen the Seinfeld, what's Seinfeld do? Getting coffee with
comedians
getting coffee and
like
cars with comedians or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
But Charlie does this with gun people, and he's got. I mean, I watched. He's got luminaries like John Crump. He had in there.
Wow.
I saw. Who did I saw? Masad Ayub was in there. Hickok 45. Beth Alcazar, who was one of my inspirations. Actually, she's going to be on here too in a couple of weeks. I'm trying to set that up. But yeah, he gets around. He does a lot of cool stuff. So because that's where I started. I discovered John Crump that way as I was browsing through that. And John, talk about your. I saw you had John Crump News. What was that, or what is that?
Yeah, that's just a little YouTube channel I started. I don't have that many subscribers. I have about 25,000 subscribers. But it's just an extension of my writing. A lot of people don't like to read articles now. So I do like news stories about my articles where I talk about them. It's a little bit more opinionated than my articles. My articles tend to be fact-based only. But with John Crump News, it allows me to put a little bit of my feelings in there, and my commentary in there.
Okay, because you were spreading out a little bit. Because I was looking at your book, Speaking with Giants, and that sounded pretty much like you're playing off of that thing as well, right? Because you said you do a lot of interview type stuff with AmmoLand for the things that you're writing.
I do a lot of interview stuff with AmmoLand. I also have a podcast at John Crump Live on YouTube, also John Crump Live on all podcast platforms, where I talk to people and interview people from all around the gun world and beyond the gun world. You might have a senator on or a congressman one day, and then the next day you will have someone from a TV show on. So it's all over the place. And it's more of a conversation than an interview. But yeah, because I like to learn about people, because every time you learn about someone, you learn about yourself.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Yeah, you're absolutely right. I know I myself personally do 6 hours of radio every Sunday, and it's the most informational and educational 6 hours I ever spend on a day.
So you took that stuff and then you put it together and put it all into a book. Is that what Speaking with Giants is?
Yeah. I took it all, put it all together in a book, and I used the money to donate to a child with cancer.
Oh, outstanding!
I didn't profit on it. I still don't profit on it. Anything I make on that, I pass along to cancer-based charities, children-based cancer charities.
Yeah, you're a good person, man. That's awesome.
So outstanding. So along those lines too, you do fireside chats with John Crump?
Yeah, that's now John Crump Live, which is morphed from fireside chats to John Crump Live, and I just renamed it because the channel, it was almost John Crump Live, so people just kept on calling it John Crump Live. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just change the name.
Well, and a lot of people don't realize about the fireside thing that, there was a president back in the day that used to do that on a regular basis.
Yeah. The Franklin Roosevelt.
All us old people know that, but the young ones don't. So you're probably you're probably smart to go the direction you went with that.
So So who's joined you for fireside chats?
Oh, you're going to bring it back up again, aren't you?
Yeah, I just want one more time.
Okay, a lot of different people have joined me on fireside chats. Everyone from Eric Pratt of Gun Owners of America. You've had people for example, Jason David Frank, who was a Power Ranger. He's been on there. Just a lot of different people from the gun world and beyond.
So you didn't nobody controversial, nobody that goes against your thoughts?
Oh yeah, I've had a few of those on there. I've had a couple of Democrats on there. I've had the head of NAGR, which I totally disagree with on tons of stuff on there. And a bunch of different people that I don't agree with, but I feel that by discussing stuff, it's good. I had Ahmed Brown, which is an anti-gun politician out of Pennsylvania, on there, and that was a kind of explosive interview there. Had a firearms instructor at Texas that was against constitutional carry, which I'm totally for constitutional carry.
Sure.
Had them on there, so yes, I've had a lot of different people that I don't agree with.
Sounds like you had a fun. Well, that's what makes your site as popular as it is. I'm sure instead of being one-sided, you allow both sides to come on, and whether you agree or disagree, it allows the viewer to make a decision. John, can you hang with us?
Sure.
PRMI Mortgage, primeres.com/Alpine. Hey, are you in the military? You looking for help with a VA loan? Or maybe you're just looking to buy, refi, or even considering a reverse mortgage. Call our local mortgage guy that you can trust. Call Chris Wiley at PRMI Mortgage. For nearly 25 years, Chris has been helping local San Diegans with all their mortgage needs. Call Chris Wiley at 619-722-1303 or primeres.com/Alpine. All right, let's go back to John Crump. Joe, I'll let you take off with this one.
Yeah, John, I wanted to ask you about, you wrote a piece about NBC News and the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office possibly committing multiple felonies. And that's hard to believe that a media station like that, a network news station, and a state attorney general's office might do that. But can you talk a little bit about your article and what's going on there?
Yeah, it happens all the time, and that one calls from...
I'm shocked.
Yeah, but it actually happens all the time. If you look at NBC, they brought in 30-round magazines into D.C. before for a news piece where they held up on national TV and said this is a 30-round magazine, and their studio was in D.C., which makes them commit a felony in D.C. there.
Yeah.
And if you watch them do a lot of different things, they break felonies, like commit felonies. And one of the things you cannot do is you cannot have someone complete a P80 kit or make a 80% firearm for you. And that's what they did. They took it to the Attorney General's office, which completed the 2 kits and gave them back to NBC, which is illegal for NBC, and it's illegal for the Attorney General's office because I double-checked with multiple attorneys. Like, we went through about 6 attorneys just to make sure I wasn't missing anything because what I saw it. I was wondering if I was wrong about the law, but it was confirmed that the Attorney General is not exempt from federal law, and them completing kits for someone else is a felony.
So were you able to
Go
get
ahead.
any comment from NBC News, anybody there, or from the Pennsylvania AG's office on that when you were researching it?
No.
Yeah.
They said no comment, and if you noticed, NBC has since edited it to remove some of the parts, so I'm pretty sure.
So have you ever seen
They know
anything?
what's going on?
Have you ever seen anything happen to those people when that kind of stuff goes on?
No, I have not. There's been a lot of calls for different things that happen when news stations break the law or different politicians break the law. But if they are breaking the law in order to push an anti-gun narrative, it seems like they usually get off scot-free. We are pushing for something to happen. I know there are several politicians like Mastriato in Pennsylvania that wants to subpoena or use his power in the Pennsylvania legislature to look into what happened. There's been calls by the Second Amendment Foundation, Gun Owners of America, and multiple other groups to look into what happened and this news story. But usually it just goes away like a hard drive. I don't know.
Yeah,
server.
Yeah, it depends on the side of the fence you're on, I guess. But the you know, it was I thought I saw something too in your article about the ATF and approaching Rob Pincus for something he was teaching in one of his classes. That was in your article, right? Does that sound familiar?
Yes, they approached them and they wanted to make sure that he was not lending tools out to anyone to complete their firearms in the firearms class he was teaching. They were basically saying that everyone had to purchase their own tools. So that was kind of interesting that everyone had to purchase their own tools. And not only did the AG's office in Pennsylvania use their tools, but they actually did the work also.
Yeah,
so you can't use So you can't use someone else's tools, and they can't help you until it reaches the stage of it being a firearm, and then they can help you once it reaches the stage of a firearm. Which also brings to the question: when does it reach the stage where it's a firearm?
And yeah, that was my understanding of how the law is. So you can buy, say, an 80% kit or something like that, but you have to do any machining, any tooling, anything absolutely yourself to the
That is
point
correct.
to the
Yeah, and
point
to the
where it
point
reaches
it's a firearm.
this mythical stage of being considered a firearm, and then after that somebody can help you.
Yes, that is the way the ATF is interpreting everything. But there is a mythical stage, like you said, where it becomes a firearm and no one's really sure. And the ATF basically says, oh, well, we know it when we see it. It's like, but that doesn't help out for anyone that's actually doing it. Because what I consider a firearm might be different from what you consider a stage where it's a firearm.
Yeah, and that's really I don't know, that falls into the same category of a lot of these laws. Just seem obviously there to help the public and make us all safer, because
Oh,
we get a
yeah.
lot of that in California. A lot of stuff is done for us to make us safer out here, to keep us safe.
Yeah, that's what they like to tell people.
But yeah, we just
Usually
had
not the case.
I know we were talking about it a little bit earlier. We just had another grotesque law out here that was proposed that actually died in committee, where they were going to require they were proposing to require parents to report gun ownership to their children's schools. And this is going to be part of the enrollment form in the beginning, and report, how they stored guns, where they stored guns, all that kind of stuff. And, that's the kind of thing that usually would sail through out here. And it was interesting. Even, even the Democrat politicians didn't support that. It died in committee here in the Senate, which is very interesting. We were talking about that earlier, trying to, ascertain as why that could be, because that was just really unusual for out here.
Think it'll come through in a different form? You think they'll make another run at it?
Well, that's what I was thinking, because I just wrote an article about that this week, and I almost said it was dead for now. But then I was thinking, well, I mean, the sponsor of the bill, the guy that wrote the bill, promised the people on the committee that, okay, he would change it drastically. Like, it was funny, actually, if you look at, I think he said he would exempt elementary schools. Well, what is the point of doing any of this at all?
So you're going to do junior high and high school?
Yeah, I mean, but it's just it's unbelievable. It's so goofy, and but it's interesting though, because we were talking about, okay, why have they really had a change of heart up there, or are they worried about what's going to happen in November, nationally, and probably to a lesser degree out here in California?
I think they live by the rule: as much as you throw against the wall, whatever sticks.
Yeah, just throw whatever. Do you see that back there, John, with the kind of legislation you get in your state?
Not only that, well, my state just overthrew all the anti-gun politicians and went back kind of towards the pro-gun side, not totally.
Oh, that's right. You're in Virginia, right?
Yeah, right. He's in Virginia.
Right.
Yeah, but you guys only.
Well,
go ahead, John.
Our new AG carries Winston Sears, not AG, our lieutenant governor. She carries an AR with her around wherever she goes in her car and whatnot. And they asked her, are you planning, now that you have security, not to carry your AR? And she basically said, I am my own security because I have my AR.
Yeah, that is so great. I'm looking forward to seeing her rise up in the future, because she's not going to stop at lieutenant governor there in Virginia. Yeah. So it's going to be nice to see that career.
Wouldn't you love to see gun racks in the trucks again?
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be nice to live in a society where
she could be the first.
You wouldn't have to worry about your window just being smashed out and your gun stolen.
I'd like to see Ford or Chevy or Dodge give her a truck and put a rack in the back window. That would be great.
Yeah, I would love to see that too. She has a great story. Jamaican immigrant, U.S. Marine. Yeah, great. great story.
Yeah,
Well-
I thought she was she was accused of being a white supremacist.
Of
too,
course.
wasn't she?
Of course.
Well, when the Republicans won the top seats in Virginia, they said the party of the white supremacy won, and Herring, who ran, was actually admitted to being in blackface, and not only that, but 2 out of the 3 of the top positions, like Winsome Sears, lieutenant governor, which is a black woman, and Jason Miyares, who is Hispanic male, won the AG against
Yeah.
white people.
Yeah, I know. Ruined their whole day.
How do you say that?
Yeah, it ruined their whole day.
Well, you guys, John,
Yeah,
you
but if
guys,
you
you guys only get Governor Youngkin for what, a year? You guys have a 1-year term for governors back there?
No, it's a couple of years, but it's only a 1 term. You can only be governor for 1 term.
Oh, okay.
Consecutive term, I should say. You can be governor, then somebody else comes in, and then you can run for governor.
That's
again.
right. That's how you almost had Terry McAuliffe back, right?
That is correct.
Wow.
McAuliffe was terrible.
Yeah, but he was good because I think, well, he woke up the parents, I think, back
Sure he
there to what
did.
was going on, which woke up the parents across the country. So he performed a great service for us, I
Yes.
think.
He should get a civic award.
Yeah, well, I live in Loudoun County, which is ground zero for this whole education thing. It's my kids go to private school because of the whole thing.
Sure. Hey, buddy.
Yeah.
We got to go, but thank you very, very much for taking time out of your day. How do people follow you around and stay on top of everything you do?
You can find me over at Amaland or on YouTube at John Crump News or John Crump Live on YouTube.
All right.
Mostly Amaland.
All right, John. Thank you very much. Enjoyed having you on the show.
So thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
All right, Orange County, Saturday, April 23rd. That's the Orange Hill Restaurant. What for? Prom. Gun prom, that is. San Diego is Saturday, June 18th at Town and Country in Mission Valley. When it comes to Second Amendment celebration dinner, gun prom is first on the list. So I have to admit, folks, we were talking about barbecues off air. And I got the coolest way. You want to buy a new barbecue, the best way to do it, find a place that sells barbecues interest-free. If you pay it off in the first year or whatever the case may be. Because then the wife can't argue with you if you talk, well, it's interest-free. What's the problem?
Well, you sound like my mother-in-law. So she used to tell me when I was going to buy a car.
Yeah.
I was worried about the loans and all that. She said, why don't you just pay cash?
Oh.
I thought, why didn't I think of that?
I would never pay cash. I'm going to use your money, not my money. Or the one that gets me when people buy a car, they'll go buy a $20,000 car. They'll put 10 down. Well, what did you give them $10,000 for? Can't you do something else with it? Don't give it to them.
Well, I feel good now because I've never done that. It's not. It wasn't by choice.
Did you pay cash
I never
for
had
it?
any money. No, I'll take whatever they give me.
Yeah,
But,
put it down. Yeah. Where'd you buy it?
At Elkhorn Ford, actually. The last.
I was talking about your
several.
barbecue.
We're back to barbecues?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought we were talking trucks now.
No.
So, no, back to the barbecue. We were talking off air about this, and my barbecue was dying. And
Well, you bought cheap.
well, yeah, and a couple of years ago, I made the decision because I keep, you buy these things every so many years, and I'd end up at Home Depot, and you spend $150 or $200 or something for a barbecue, and they're all right, but nothing great.
How many dead barbecues have you got in your backyard?
Oh, none, because I found out the landfill takes them. You just drive it off to the recycle side and dump them off.
But how many were there before you figured out?
I don't know, 30 years worth. There are probably a bunch of them.
I know.
But went cheap last time. Bought the $100 barbecue, and was thinking, okay, even if this thing lasts 2 years, that's fine.
Yeah.
What I was not thinking about was the last 6 months of the second year are terrible.
Terrible.
And it's like I think I was grilling a week or two ago. I was making some burgers, and I just couldn't stand. I couldn't even finish them out there. Everything was flaming up because everything inside the grill was rotting away because it's all cheap. So I tossed that and I went out and I said, okay, let me get a decent one this year. And, I started researching that and, what do you have to spend to get a decent barbecue or a decent grill? And I discovered just to touch the very low end of decent gets you up over $600 or so. And so I ended up at Costco with a Weber that was a $1,000 Weber that we got for $800, I think.
Oh, there you go.
But my wife likes Costco because you can bring it back. So even if it doesn't work in a couple of years, you drag it back here.
Because you and I would never take it back.
But I'm not the take it back.
I don't
guy.
I bought some fluorescent light bulbs, a case, 12 of them, and $107. Well, they don't fit. So my wife says, "Are you going to take them back?" This is no. We'll probably use them.
Yeah, we'll have something someday that fits.
Something someday. Well, actually, I got a guy that's going to come over and do some work for me, and I'm just going to give them to him in trade.
Well, we did. I was
and this can relate to guns because you don't want to cheap out on equipment.
That's true.
Whether you're buying a bag, whether you're buying
a
gun, or anything, don't always go with the cheapest price. And I like research. And the first thing I do on Google, like I bought a toaster the other day. I go, number one toaster, for sale. And then it'll kick up the 5 toasters, and then you can grade them, and then that way you'll know what to get.
Well, that's a good way to do it.
I think so.
But, because I'm looking forward. I was telling you, I hadn't used the grill yet. So I'm looking forward to it because we're doing this goofy diet thing. So I got a couple of days to wait. But come Friday, I think we're going to grill a couple of steaks. And I have, I don't know if I told you about Zippy the steer, because we make Zippy burgers now, which are fantastic.
What is a Zippy the
Well, last year, we have some friends that live up in Idaho, and they've got horse property. They've got about 6 acres. They've got horses. And apparently in Idaho, if you can generate income from agriculture on your property, you get a huge property tax break. So they and all their friends will raise different animals. So what they do is they do 3 steer each year, and they buy them, and it takes 8 or 9 months to raise them up, and then they have the butcher come and they butcher them up and they sell them. So I bought a quarter steer from our friends last year.
Was it good from frozen to fresh?
Yeah. So far it's been great, and I can't eat enough of a quarter steer to do it all fresh.
Well, I know,
fast enough.
But see, that
as good as it is.
Because see, I also bought one of those Sela meal things.
Oh, okay.
And then I would go buy, tons of meat or what have you at Costco.
Mm-hmm.
But I just never liked the taste after it thawed out.
Yeah, I haven't noticed it at all. Because before, what I would do is, I'd get it like at Iowa Meats if I was doing something
Iowa Farms
special. But with these guys, I bought the steer, so I went and picked it up last year, and I was asking, I said, by the way, you guys name your steers. Who am I eating here? So turns out I'm eating Zippy this year. So
okay,
Zippy makes fabulous burgers, and I'm looking forward to a Zippy steak or two on Thursday.
Well, it's funny you should say that because a good friend of mine that works at a restaurant in Janus, her and her family are really big into animals, so they bought a pig, a little pig, and they named it, and they raised it. They butchered it. They couldn't eat it. They couldn't eat it because all they could see was this cute little piggy when it was a little baby. I don't remember what name they gave it. So it just totally ruined them. They just couldn't eat it.
Well, see, that's another story that's coming up too. I got invited to go hunt pigs. So
when are you going to go do that?
That's the end of June. So that was it's a little bit late, but that's
where you going? Where are you going?
Up to Paso Robles.
Oh,
to a ranch up there. So, because that's another thing we'll be writing about here. So you'll be hearing all about.
Are you
this
doing a rifle or doing a bow?
I'm doing a rifle. Because this was my excuse now. Because the guy that invited me said, I got rifles, I got scopes, I got everything. You don't need anything.
But you had to get your own.
Excuse to buy a rifle. Yeah. So I bought a Savage 110. I got it in 6.5 Creedmoor.
Oh.
Just zeroed it in the other day, and it's beautiful. Because somebody told me, they said, put a brake on it. It'll improve. It gets rid of the recoil and improves the accuracy a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I put a brake on it, and I hadn't shot it before I did that, so I don't know what it would have felt like without the brake, but it was beautiful. Almost no recoil.
Really?
Once we dialed it in, it was very accurate, nice tight little groups at 100 yards.
Wow.
So I'm looking forward to doing that. So, by June or so, I should have enough of Zippy gone
And
to
then
have
you'll be
room
eating
in the
Miss
freezer.
Piggy.
Yeah, so we could replace that part of the freezer with some wild boar, which should be really tasty.
I did have somebody ask me to go to do the same thing, but he was going to sit in a tree, and I was supposed to run along, beside the tree with the pig chasing me.
Oh, there you go.
And I thought that would not be a good way to go.
But
the pig's name was Amy.
Amy the pig.
Amy the pig.
So what happened to Amy? Amy got.
I think they ended up giving it. I think they
and-
gave it. Well, they had it all butchered up and everything,
Wow.
but they couldn't eat it because the kids would cry and the wife was devastated. So they gave it away.
So hopefully, when should I get one of these pigs in June, I'll have no personal relationship with the pig.
Make sure you
beforehand.
don't.
Well, and the other thing too, the guy that invited me, he said he found a good processor on the way home. So what he does is, when you shoot these things, the guide that takes you out there, they'll quarter it, they'll skin it, quarter it for you, and then you drop it off the processor on the way home, and then the processor happens to be near where this guy's son lives.
Yeah.
So he goes back up a week later, stays the night with his son, picks up the processed meat the next day. It's all packaged and brings it back down.
And frozen.
Yeah, so this should work out really well. So I'm looking forward to that. So we tied this back to guns.
Yeah, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, Nina, but I have seen Nina, and I see you. So this diet is not for Nina. Let me guess, because that girl does not need to lose any weight whatsoever. So is this for you?
No, well, it's not really. It's more of a getting my health and lifestyle back under control a little bit.
It looks
the
fine.
part of it is dieting.
I mean, you're not heavy.
No, I'm just trying to.
No, you're not trying to do anything.
But no. Fortunately, she went along with it for the couple of weeks anyway, because I said it'll be much easier to go through this 2-week cleansing thing if somebody's doing it with me. Because there's these what they call smoothies involved, and smoothie is a terrible word for these things. They're not smoothie.
Tasty.
Yeah, smoothie is tasty, friendly, sweet, fruity things.
Are you listening to this, Brendan?
These.
Oh, yes. Sorry. I forgot to turn on my microphone. Yes, I'm here.
These are essentially just ground up vegetables is what they are, and you try to choke them down. So I got a couple more days of this left.
Have you lost any weight?
Yeah, actually I have in the beginning, but that's going to happen anyway when you do something this kind of radical.
Yeah, my wife my mother tried to get me to be a juicer.
Yeah, I'm not. My mother-in-law, God bless her, she's 88. She's very healthy, and she eats this way all the time. And my goal is not to become my mother-in-law. I just want to get a little healthier.
I had a chili size the other night, man. It was off the charts.
Well, we did tie this back to guns.
Yes, we did.
So there will be a future article on my Savage 110.
All right.
There'll be a future article and discussion about the pig hunt when it comes down. And eventually I'm going to talk about my cowboy gun that I picked up.
Oh,
so
that's
coming up.
How many safes do you have at home?
I got one that's very full, but my neighbor who's moving is not going to move his safe with him, so they're going to wheel that right across the street. So
in the garage.
I'm looking forward to new room here in about a month.
Well, folks, if you noticed, Stump, my nephew, was not on tonight. That will come on next week. Michael Schwartz hopefully will be back next week. So with that being said, we need your help. Subscribe to our show. Give us a 5-star review. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify. And please support all our great sponsors. San Diego County, Orange County, and Inland Empire gun owners. Dillon Law Group, PRMI Mortgage, Sage Street Digital Marketing, Seal One, Leo Hamill Fine Jewelry, San Diego Flight Training International. Thanks to Joe and our good man, Brendan Thomas. And don't forget, Bob Siegel is in the wings. Don't touch that dial. Right here on FM 96.1, AM 1170.
The Answer.
Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. You can watch us live every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, right here on our YouTube channel, or if you're in the San Diego area, you can listen to us on 1170 a.m. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform for free. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can help restore and protect the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.